Hello students, in this video I would like to discuss about phases of compiler. Structure of a compiler. Up to this point we have treated a compiler as a single box that maps a source program into a semantically equivalent target program. If we open up this box a little, we see that there are two parts to this mapping, analysis and synthesis. The analysis part breaks up the source program into constituent pieces and imposes a grammatical structure on them. It then uses this structure to create an intermediate representation of the source program. If the analysis part dictates that the source program is either syntactically ill-formed or semantically unsound, then it must provide informative messages so the user can take corrective action. The analysis part also collects information about the source program and stores it in a data structure called a symbol table, which is passed along with the intermediate representation to the synthesis part. The synthesis part constructs the desired target program from the intermediate representation and the information in the symbol table. The analysis part is often called the front end of the compiler. The synthesis part is the back end. So far what we have discussed is compiler is a single block where input is a source program and output is a target program. But actually inside this box we have much more sub-blocks or some sub-procedures. So here every compiler has two parts, analysis part and synthesis part. So these are the steps what happens in the analysis and synthesis part. So the main function of analysis part is to report the errors. The errors may be either syntax error or semantic error. Syntax error we all know, we already discussed in this computer programming. Semantic error to find some meaningless statement. Suppose I am writing something like 5 equal to x, it didn't have any meaning. It is syntactically correct, but it doesn't have any meaning because we can't assign the value of x to 5. So that's an example for semantic error. So the analysis part is known as front end of the compiler and synthesis part is the back end. So the analysis part we are dividing the source program or breaking the source program, and the synthesis part we are actually converting into an intermediate representation with the help of the symbol table. So all these things we will discuss in detail later. So phases of a compiler. If we examine the compilation process in more detail, we see that it operates as a sequence of phases, each of which transforms one representation of the source program to another. In practice, several phases may be grouped together and the intermediate representation between the grouped phases need not be constructed explicitly. The symbol table, which stores information about the entire source program, is used by phases of the compiler. So here we have 7 phases: lexical analyzer, syntax analyzer, semantic analyzer, intermediate code generator, machine independent code optimizer, code generator, machine dependent code optimizer, and also we have a symbol table. Symbol table we already discussed in system programming. Anyway, we are going to study the details of symbol table in this subject also. So here we have 7 phases. We will look one by one. First one is lexical analysis. The first phase of a compiler is called lexical analyzing or scanning. The lexical analyzer reads the stream of characters making up the source program and groups the characters into meaningful sequence called lexemes. So a program is given to the compiler. First it is going to lexical analysis. It is also called scanning, where the program will be read character by character. These characters are grouped into a meaningful sequence called lexemes. For each lexeme, the lexical analyzer produces an output, a token of the form token name, attribute value. The meaningful sequence are converted to token by the lexical analyzer. So the token consists of 2 parts, token name and attribute value. This token name and attribute value will be clear when we see the example. In the token, the first component, token name, is an abstract symbol that is used during syntax analysis, and the second component, attribute value, points to an entry in the symbol table for the token. So the token name is actually used by the next phase, which is called syntax analysis. Information from the symbol table entry is needed for semantic analysis and code generation. So the information what we are going to store in the symbol table will be used in future. So lexical analyzer, the input will be character stream. This character stream will be grouped into meaningful sequences. For each sequence, it will be converting it into token. So character streams are actually converted to token stream. Always remember, token contain two parts, token name and attribute value. And one thing worth noticing is attribute value is not mandatory. So this is example for lexical analysis. Suppose I am going to apply lexical analysis to a statement position equal to initial plus rate star 60. So position initial rate are variable, equal to is an operator, plus is an operator, star is an operator, 60 is a constant. The characters in this assignment could be grouped into the following lexemes and mapped into the following tokens passed on to the syntax analyzer. So first meaningful sequence is position. So position is a lexeme that would be mapped into a token id, 1. So here id stands for identifier because position is a variable. Variable is an identifier, where id is an abstract symbol standing for identifier and 1 points to the symbol table entry for position. So here position is inserted to symbol table because position is a variable and it is inserted in the first row. That's why we are having a value 1. So id, 1 represent position. The symbol table entry for an identifier holds information about the identifier such as its name and type. Some additional information is also stored in the symbol table along with the variable name. Type is also stored in the symbol table. So next meaningful character sequence is equal to. The assignment symbol equal to is a lexeme that is mapped into the token equal to. Since this token needs no attribute value, we have omitted the second component. So here equal to is also considered as a token. Since it is an operator, no need to insert it in the symbol table. So we didn't have the second component. So next meaningful sequence is initial. So initial is a lexeme that is mapped into the token id, 2, where 2 points to the symbol table entry for initial. Plus is a lexeme that is mapped into the token plus. Rate is a lexeme that is mapped into the token id, 3, where 3 points to symbol table entry for rate. Star is a lexeme that is mapped into the token star. 60 is a lexeme that is mapped into the token 60. Blank separating the lexemes would be discarded by the lexical analyzer. So to lexical analyzer, an input is given position equal to initial plus rate star 60. It is converted into some tokens. So tokens are in the form id1 equal to id2 plus id3 star 60. So I hope you understood what's the meaning of id. id means identifier and represent the symbol table entry or symbol table row. Next is syntax analysis. The second phase of the compiler is syntax analysis or parsing. Syntax analysis is also known as parsing. Lexical analysis is also known as scanning. The parser uses the first component of the token produced by the lexical analyzer to create a tree-like intermediate representation that depicts the grammatical structure of the token tree. The typical representation in the syntax tree in which each interior node represents an operation or operator and the children of the node represent the arguments or identifier of the operation. So I will try to explain with the help of the example. So here id1 equal to id2 plus id3 star 60 is the input given to the syntax analyzer. Output of syntax analyzer is always a tree, and the interior node generally represent operators and the leaf node represents identifiers. If we analyze this tree, first thing happens is id3 star 60 because multiplication has the highest priority. Then it is added to id2, then the entire value is stored to id1. So the output of lexical analysis is given to syntax analysis, and syntax analysis convert those tokens to a tree called syntax tree. So input is token stream, output is syntax tree. Next is semantic analysis. The semantic analyzer uses a syntax tree and the information in the symbol table to check the source program for semantic consistency with the language definition. So semantic analyzer use the output of syntax analyzer and also the information in the symbol table. It also gathers type information and saves it in either the syntax tree or the symbol table for subsequent use during intermediate code generation. An important part of semantic analysis is type checking, where the compiler checks each operator has matching operand. So this third point is an important point. Type checking is done in semantic analysis. I'll try to explain type checking with the help of an example. Many programming language definition requires an array index to be an integer. We all know what is an array index. If we have an array A of 0 represent first cell, A of 1 represent second cell. So always the index value will be an integer. We never saw something like A of 1.0 or A of 1.2. That index value is always an integer. The compiler must report an error if a floating point number is used to index an array. So this is a type mismatch. One thing worth noticing is this is not syntax error, this is actually a semantic error. The language specification may permit some type conversion called coercion. So some type conversions are also done in semantic analysis, that is coercion. Actually coercion means automatic type conversion. So automatic type conversion also happens in semantic analysis. So if you remember typecasting, it is actually not automatic conversion. Programmer is converting the variable to a different type. If the operator is applied to a floating point number and an integer, the compiler may convert or coerce the integer into a floating point number. Suppose if we are going to do some operation on a floating point number and an integer, that integer will automatically convert it to floating point. That automatic type conversion or coercion happens in semantic analysis. So in our example, suppose that the position, initial and rate have been declared to be floating point numbers and the lexeme 60 by itself forms an integer. The type checker in the semantic analyzer discovers that the operator star is applied to a floating point number rate and an integer 60. So if you remember the example, position equal to initial plus rate star 60. You just imagine position, initial, rate all are floating point numbers and we are multiplying that rate with integer 60. Here we have only 60. There is nothing like 60.00. So 60 alone we consider it as an integer. So all other three ops are floating point numbers. So the 60 will automatically convert it to floating point number in semantic analyzer. In this case, the integer may be converted into a floating point number. In the output of the semantic analyzer has an extra node for operator int to float, which explicitly converts its integer argument into a floating point number. So output of semantic analyzer is also a tree. But if you notice this tree, there is a difference. Earlier here, we didn't have this int to float. So int to float means it is similar to a function or an operator which converts 60 to float. So main functions of semantic analyzer are automatic type conversion and also finding some semantic errors. In semantic analyzer step, the values will be computed. Suppose I have something like id 5 equal to 5 plus 4. So you just imagine this id 5 equal to 5 plus 4 comes from some statements like x equal to 5 plus 4. So the semantic analyzer actually compute the values and will convert this id comma 5 equal to 5 plus 4 to id 5 equal to 9. Next is intermediate code generator. After syntax and semantic analysis of the source program, many compilers generate an explicit low-level or machine-like intermediate representation. The intermediate representation should have two important properties. It should be easy to produce and it should be easy to translate into target machine. Here we consider an intermediate form called three-address code, which consists of a sequence of assembly-like instructions with 3 operands per instruction. Each operand can act like a register. So here the input given to intermediate code generator is a syntax tree. So it is actually the syntax tree from semantic analyzer, and it will convert it into intermediate representation. So there are a lot of intermediate representation. Here we are discussing about three-address code. You just take this statement T2 equal to ID 3 star T1. How many operands are here? 3 operands are there. T2, ID 3 and T1. So that's why it is called three-address code. Maximum of 3 operands are there. So why we use three-address code? Because we can convert this three-address code to assembly-like instructions very easily. So here we are using some temporary variables T1, T2, T3, and these temporary variables resembles to registers in the assembly level language. So T1 equal to int to float 60. So first thing is 60 will be converted to float. Then T2 equal to ID 3 star T1. ID 3 actually represents rate. T3 equal to ID 2 plus T2. ID 2 actually represent initial. ID 1 equal to T3. ID 1 actually represent position. So this is an example for intermediate code generator. So next is code optimization. The machine independent code optimization phase attempts to improve the intermediate code so that better target code will result. Usually better means faster, but other objectives may be desired, such as shorter code or target code that consumes less power. There are simple optimizations that significantly improve the running time of the target program without slowing down compilation too much. So this intermediate representation is given to code optimizer. If you notice the input part and the output part, here we have 4 lines. Here we have only 2 lines. So we are optimizing the statements, or we are improving the running time of these statements. So this, instead of calling a function int to float, it is converted to 60.0. And these two statements are combined. This T1 and this T1 is not same. Here we are using only one temporary variable. Here in the input we have 3 temporary variables. So first temporary variable equal to ID 3 star 60. So here it is actually ID 3 star T1. T1 is nothing but int to float 60. Instead of that, here we have 60.0. And ID 1 equal to ID 2 plus T1. ID 1 equal to T3. There it is actually ID 2 plus this T1. So code optimization is to generate better target code, because it helps to run the programs much faster. Then code generation. The code generator takes as input an intermediate representation of the source program and maps it into the target language. If the target language is machine code, registers or memory locations are selected for each of the variables used by the program. Then the intermediate instructions are translated into sequence of machine instructions that performs the same task. The crucial aspect of code generation is the judicious assignment of registers to hold variables. So here this is actually a 3-address code which is converted to assembly level language. Assembly level language will be in the form of mnemonic codes. LDF R2 comma ID3. That means load the floating point number ID3 to R2. ID3 means the value will be taken from the symbol table. Then multiply the floating numbers R2 comma 60.0. This is an immediate addressing. Hash is used. The value in the R2 and 60.0 will be multiplied and it will be stored in R2. Then LDF R1 comma ID2. Value in the ID2, that means from the symbol table it will be taken and it will be stored in R1. Then add F, floating point addition, R1 comma R2. R1 and R2 will be added and it will be stored in R1. Then STF ID1 comma R1. So value from the R1 is stored to ID1. So this is the equivalent assembly level language for these two statements. Please go through it again. So these are the phases in compiler. Next is symbol table management. We already discussed about symbol table. An essential function of a compiler is to record the variable names used in the source program and collect information about various attributes of each name. So variable names has to be stored in the symbol table along with some information. These attributes may provide information about the storage allocated for a name, its type, its scope. So along with the name of the variable, its type and its scope is also stored. Scope means global variables and local variables. In the case of procedure names, such things as the number and types of its argument, the method of passing each argument and type returned is also stored in the symbol table. Symbol table always contain variables, details about the variables. So symbol table always contains some details about the identifier. It may be either variable or some function call or some procedure name. So if a procedure name is stored in the symbol table, along with that, the number of arguments, the types of argument, the method of passing each argument. Method of passing each argument means whether it is passed by address or passed by reference or passed by value, and also the type returned. These things are also stored in the symbol table. A symbol table is a data structure containing a record for each variable name with fields for attributes of the name. The data structure should be designed to allow the compiler to find the record for each name quickly and to store or retrieve data from that record quickly. So the data structure symbol table must be designed in such a way that the retrieving and storing of data in the table must be faster. Generally, in symbol table we are using hash tables. Those things we study in detail later. So that's all I want to share in this video. Thank you.